Hello, I want to welcome you to the Meacham workshop interviews again. And today we have Christian Collier. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Procedure has been actually to have you start by reading a poem, and we'll talk a little bit about that and then go from there.
Okay. I thought I would read a poem called Almost Home, and it begins with an epigraph by Christian Morgenstern that says, "Home is not where you live, but where they understand you." Perhaps I have seen too much of this place and its people to feel truly comfortable here. For years, I have known the face of the darkness that lives within the city limits and stared unflinchingly into the pools of its eyes, and perhaps that is why I have such a difficult time calling this home. My tongue is barely even able to hold that small word steadily in the arena of my mouth when I think about the large rebel flag that stands to this day like a sentinel outside the tiny brown house across the street from the elementary school where I go to play basketball, or the cotton a white stranger quietly placed in my father's lawn one night while my family slept to remind us of our place and encouraging us all, without words, not to dream too brightly. Or the manager of the small cafe downtown telling my Caucasian friends that if they did not do something quick and decisive, black people would claim and corrupt the very soul of the country. All of this, all of these deep blemishes still remind me of my mother and how she once told me never to fall in love with something or someone incapable of loving me back. I cannot recall how many years my body has remained outside the full caress of this place, but I knew it grew weary ages ago of waiting for that day when this city, this almost home, could show me that its wide heart had finally tired of laboring to mute the percussive music of mine.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
How did that come about?
I actually was in a writing group at the time, and all of the prompts had something to do with the South. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting being a writer of color because you tend to experience the South in a way that other people might not necessarily. So I believe the prompt was about just kind of revolving around the theme of home. And a lot of things kind of hit me, but specifically some of the things that I listed kind of jumped into my head, and I thought that that would be kind of a unique angle to take. You know, we all have different things that we can point to in terms of racism and discrimination, but I think that some of those examples kind of present in a different light, and that really intrigued me, and I wanted to do something to kind of showcase that.
When you were actually writing it, what did you begin with?
I think, if memory serves, I began pretty much with the beginning lines. And what my process has been for the past couple of years is that I like writing myself into a corner a little bit. Mm-hmm. So I believe maybe the first line hit me, and then I like to ask myself a question. If this happened, then what? And then, because not only does it kind of keep the energy going, but it instills a little bit of space and a little bit of breath. And it's interesting what happens if you allow yourself kind of that distance to kind of drift into it. And I think I pretty much wrote it straight through on the page. When it flips to the second part about all the blemishes, the lines change. So the form tends to alter a little bit. Keeping with the intensity of what's going on. Mm-hmm. And I believe that came later, but the text pretty much came straight through. And it's rare for me when that happens.
Why the word blemishes?
That's a very good question. I don't know, I think I'm really attracted to the musicality of language. And specifically its ability to, you can use a really beautiful word, a word that just sounds incredible, that describes something very horrible. Mm-hmm. And I mean, other mediums can do that too. I believe that with poetry, it just gives it a special, you know, it's kind of like if you're cooking, you know, it's one of it's like garlic powder. It's one of those wonderful ingredients that you just throw in and it automatically adds a wonderful amount of flavor to what you're doing. And I think blemish was just a really interesting word to use in a poem that has so much ugliness in it, you know.
Yeah, it's really ironic. You get to that word and you think, oh, you know, you go by it for a minute and you think, no, wait a minute, blemish. Sure. It's more than a blemish.
Yeah.
You know, although it relates to skin color too.
Sure.
Yeah, so that has a kind of weird, haunting, resonant effect in it, which is pretty amazing. So, what was your reaction when you wrote that word?
I don't remember specifically getting stuck on that word, honestly. And I think it's just because I've written so many things, specifically dealing with race. I have an entire chapbook manuscript that's all about race. And again, race is such an interesting thing to write about because you mention race and then automatically people have a knee-jerk reaction, one way or the other. And it kind of prevents you from getting into the minutia and all because there are a lot of really funny things in terms of like race and racism. There just are. And it prevents you from even getting into that and entertaining those things. So I think that so much of tackling that work involved doing it in a way where, again, like the musicality is attractive and the way that the topics are being explored has to be enticing in different ways. So it's not to just put the reader off. But so many of these things kind of came out of the same time frame that it didn't really resonate with me at the time. It wasn't until I actually started reading the poem out that other people kind of, you know, started to pick up on and a few other things, like the cotton being placed in the yard. You know, just like that minor detail ended up being or eliciting so many conversations. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's really hard when you're kind of actively working in it to kind of take the step back and see.
Sure, yeah. Although when you were writing it, I mean, you said you wrote basically from beginning to end. And one question is that your usual process? And the second is there a point when you're doing that where you think, oh, I see where this wants to take me?
Yeah, well, my writing process has changed. I like to think that I've become more zen in terms of being an artist. And I used to just bang my head against the wall if I couldn't, oh, I'm right there, I need to just, And now whenever that happens, if I can't get anything, I leave it alone. I walk away, I go see a movie, because even when it doesn't seem like you're actively working in it, you're working in it. You just have to allow yourself the space and perspective to kind of bring in new resources, new stimulation. And then I'll come back, and then I kind of have the information. So that's been my process for the past few years. Is even though it kind of comes straight through, if I hit the stumbling block here, I take the walk, I do whatever, I come back, and then eventually, at some point in time, it's there. Yeah. And to answer your question, yes, I think you start to see kind of the path that the poem wants to go in, more so than the path that I want to take in it. Right. And I've learned over the years more to try to follow that than, because maybe I'm biased. In my most humble of opinions, I feel like the poem is almost always better if you follow where it wants to go, more so than, no, I'm just going to beat you into submission. We're going to go the perfect poem is in my head, and we're going to, no. It's all about the adventure for me. Yeah,
it reminds me of that saying by that Charlie Simic wrote once. He said, I wanted the poem to go to church, but it took me to the dog races.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think is a writer's responsibility today?
Oh, that's a good one. Well, I feel like the responsibility of artists, period, regardless of time, is to tell the truth. And that's kind of where things get sticky. I think that if you're dealing with this climate, you know, the truth means so many different things. Yeah. We're in an era where you don't just have, you know, kind of nonsensical things, but you have nonsensical things that are actively trending. You know, like fake news is actively trending. And so I think that part of the responsibility is to work against that, if you have, or your work has an emotional heart, or you yourself have a particular set of values that you like to try to instill in the work that you're doing, I think that you have a responsibility to A, stay true to that, B, maybe amplify it a little bit, because now, you know, so many things, it's possibly the easiest time in human history with the advent of technology to actually communicate and get something out there. And I don't feel like there's any excuse if the kind of the nonsense and all the noise on this side can broadcast to an active audience, or can utilize platforms in that manner, that if you are not just doing creative work, but you have access to the same things, there's no excuse why you can't do the same thing to try to right the balance. And I think that that's part of the responsibility now, is not even just attacking it in the work, but using your presence and your voice and your passion and your conviction to try to combat those things.
Yeah, that's something we really need today. And well, I want to thank you. Then we look forward to your chapbook when it comes out. So
hopefully that'll be soon.
thanks very much.
Thank you so much.